Hello, this is going to be my first video in which I talk about current events and look at it from the perspective of a negotiator. So today's event is, or the news rather, is that the government is going to be cutting the UK's foreign aid budget. And obviously this has attracted a certain amount of controversy. But I wanted to look at this from a more negotiation perspective, which is very important to the UK government in the current climate. So let's have a bit of a look at this one. The sort of countries that the UK government really want to sign trade deals with are those very much in what can be termed as emerging markets. So they can be developing, semi-developed worlds, the countries that have very much a lot of untapped resources, a lot of untapped labour. They may have natural resources, they may have the potential to set up manufacturing facilities and so on. They may also have the potential to trade at very good rates to the UK. Such countries, however, tend to be very much dependent on foreign aid programs. They can have all sorts of systematic as well as financial problems that prevents them from being able to exploit those resources themselves or to develop their capabilities in order to exploit those resources. So when it comes to things like foreign aid, you can end up with sort of two different types of foreign aid. You can end up with very much the gift, if you like. I'm sure there's a better term, but the gifts of foreign aid, no strings attached. But you can also get tied foreign aid, where a wealthy nation will seek to develop the resources, seek to exploit them, or build infrastructure in return for certain benefits. Let's call that a partnership model. And so you would negotiate with that country to establish that. You might establish a port, for example. You might build roads, you might build factories. And for a period, you would negotiate that for a period of years, you will then operate those facilities to your commercial or your governmental benefit. So that is a model that is currently being very much followed by countries like China and has been for many years for countries like the USA. Those countries give lots of money in foreign aid or benefits or infrastructure investment, but they leverage it. They leverage it for their own benefit. They set up partnerships, they have influence, and that is a little bit a very oversimplified snapshot of what foreign aid is like. Now, the UK government, of course, post-Brexit, we're in this world of global Britain. So in the global Britain environment, the UK needs to agree lots of trade deals with a wide range of countries. Obviously, you've got some large natural ally countries, maybe like Canada, Australia, the USA, and so on, that you do want trade deals, but those will be large and complicated. In the slightly more shorter to medium term, it is actually going to be easier to agree trade deals with developing nations. So those in the Far East, those in Africa, for example, who would certainly welcome a partner willing to invest and willing to allow them to trade, certainly on a tariff-free basis with them. So there's lots of scope, lots of potential to set up various trade agreements in markets that the other nations necessarily are not well established in. However, when it comes to these sorts of things, those countries will always remember those who helped them and those who walked away. They don't tend to forget that sort of thing. So, turning to today's news and the fact that MPs have voted to cut the foreign aid budget, it's very much really shooting the UK global Britain ambitions in the foot, really. Because those countries are going to remember that the programme was cut in the middle of a pandemic. And then when countries like China come along and say, well, here's a load of money, we'll build a port for you and we'll run it for you, we'll help create jobs and economies, fuel your economy. The UK tries to do the same. Well, which of those nations, which of those choices do you think those countries will go for? There's a little bit more of a moral dimension to this as well, and this is important to negotiations. I know negotiations may be talked of in stark and business terms, but actually you should never forget the moral dimension when you're trying to negotiate. Because when you wish to negotiate, you want to negotiate from a position of strength. And by that, you need to have the moral high ground, not just the financial power, not just the leverage, but you need to be seen as a principled partner, someone that can be trusted, to do business with. So the moral dimension is important. It's very much all part of a crucial term that I use in negotiation, and that is to have credibility. You need to have credibility at the negotiation table. And part of the means by which you do have that credibility is that you're seen to have, good morals, good principles, whatever you wish to call them. So let's think a little bit more. Let's explore that argument in terms of events. Think of any war. Think of any pandemic. Think of any kind of natural disaster. And think about what happened on the ground. 3 types of people will usually emerge from those sorts of events. The first type of person, the first sort of category of people, will be your normal survivors of such event, normal people. They will try to survive that event. They will try to extricate themselves from it. They will try to protect their friends and families. They may even try a little bit to help their neighbours. But primarily, they're trying to get themselves out of trouble. They're trying to find whatever means they can to survive that event, those tragedies, whatever it may be. Then you get another category of people. These are people who rise up, who step forward. Even at personal cost, they will come forward. They will give money. They will give their possessions. They will work horrible hours all day to help other people, not for their own benefit, purely to help other people. And whenever it's in a war or any other kind of catastrophic event, such people can always be found. They're always respected, they're noted, they're shining examples, they're held up as people to follow, to inspire us. And people remember that category of people. And then, of course, you get the final category of people. These are the people who very much go for self-interest. They'll grab everything they can, all their worldly possessions, all their money, any resources, food, water, whatever it may be, and they will retreat. They will retreat to a place of safety that they can fortify, that they can safeguard their own interests. They will not help anyone else. They will, in certain cases, they will even deny resources to other people more needy than themselves. And you see this sort of pattern in all sorts of events. In any kind of war, in any kind of catastrophe. It always is. There's never really an exception. So here we are, in the middle of a global pandemic, on one hand. And we have the UK, with the global Britain ambition, post-Brexit, on the other hand. And so the very nations that global Britain needs to court to agree trade deals with, well, if those nations are to view Britain in the light of the current news, which category of those people do you think those nations will put the UK in right now? Because I don't think it will be the generous, unselfish category, the people who stepped up to the plate to help others more needy than themselves. I don't think that would be seen. And that's important from a negotiation perspective. Because cultural biases, cultural views about you, the negotiator, when you turn, are important. People will react to what they believe about you. They'll make certain assumptions. So any UK negotiator wanting to go and negotiate trade deals with those countries that the UK government have just withdrawn foreign aid from, I think it's not in for a particularly good time. So perhaps what the moral of this story really is that moral bankruptcy, if you like, as well as financial bankruptcy, doesn't help you when it comes to negotiation. It very much hampers you, hinders you. And I'm sure many UK people will not want to be put into a category, will not want to feel that they should be viewed as selfish, uncaring population. And they themselves, as individuals, may not be. But the UK government has just put those people into that category, into the eyes of many of the poorer nations of the world. And when you have global ambitions, well, it very much is shooting yourself in the foot, really, for what are not particularly large money savings in view of all the other enormous costs. And of course, as many economists would generally like to point out, you need trade to recover from significant economic downturns. You need the ability to create business, to export goods. And I think if you've made the landscape harder for yourself to actually do that because you've driven down the goodwill that you rely upon to negotiate a deal, then it's very hard to look at this current news, the event that they've reduced the foreign aid budget, as really rather counterproductive. It doesn't serve UK interest, albeit certain people perhaps may see it as serving their interests. If you take a wider global picture, quite forgetting the moral argument, it's very easy to see that this is a very much harmful policy. Those are my thoughts on that event. And yeah, I hope I won't be having too many more posts like that. That's not a very pleasant thing to see.